Are you tired of hearing that you need to be grateful, even for what has caused you pain? Do the suggestions like "be grateful" irritate you at a moment when you have no strength to smile, only emptiness and fatigue? It's not your fault. This is real fatigue from the demand to be grateful when there are things in life that you genuinely do not feel grateful for. Injustice, losses, mistakes, lessons paid for at too high a price. In this video, I won't demand gratitude from you for everything at once. I will give you a simple map: how to distinguish the pressure of be grateful from living useful gratitude. How to find that one small foothold to grab onto when everything around is crumbling. And how not to turn gratitude into self-flagellation. By the end of the video, you will be able to name one specific little feeling or fact that truly keeps you afloat in times of overload. And you will know how to give it a little more attention so as not to drown in complaints and apathy. To be completely honest, we won't just be theorizing in the air. There will be real examples, not idealized stories of after pain came light, but cases when a person remained in pain and still found something that helped them continue. And there will be specific techniques, not a bunch of breaths and not trendy aphorisms, but actions you can apply right this morning or at night when you can't sleep. And it seems that nothing is changing. If you currently feel a mix of resentment, fatigue, and a secret expectation of a miracle, that's normal. The purpose of this hook is to relieve you of the demand to be grateful, to grant permission to deny, and at the same time to show a practical path to avoid losing yourself in hopelessness. Stay with me, and in a few minutes, you will receive a working model: how to extract true, useful feelings of gratitude from the chaos of emotions, and how this feeling becomes a tool for survival, not an ideology. The topic of gratitude may seem trivial until you find yourself on the brink. You have work problems, shaky relationships, health issues demanding attention, or your spirit is simply worn out. In such moments, be grateful sounds like an invitation to be silent or to pretend. But it is now, at the peak of fatigue and doubt, that it is important to understand how gratitude can be helpful and why it should not become an obligation or yet another source of guilt. You are not alone in this state. Look around. People are forced to live under the pressure of constant choice, uncertainty, and endless news. Many have stopped distinguishing when the feeling of gratitude saves and when it serves as an excuse not to change. Specific signs of this state include: you fall asleep and wake up with a sense of anxiety rather than a plan for the day. You notice that small joys, a cup of good tea, a friend's call, a short walk, no longer resonate as they used to. Meanwhile, the belief grows in your mind that you are not grateful enough, and you start to blame yourself. The second observed sign is chronic ambivalence. You want to move forward, but the guilt for not valuing the past or missed opportunities pulls you back. Therefore, in this video, we will act according to a map. I will break down the material into logical blocks to make it easier for you to understand and apply. In the main part, we will go through A to E. A. What happens when there is no gratitude and how it affects thinking and the body. B. The internal mechanisms of happiness perception and why the brain often refuses to notice small supports. C. Common mistakes that prevent us from accepting any gratitude without self-blame. D. How a shift in perspective changes the feeling of reality and provides choice without violence against oneself. What specifically changes in behavior and feelings when you acknowledge small but real reasons for gratitude. In practice, I will show 3 simple steps that you can implement right today. A new thesis that we will accept as a working hypothesis. Gratitude is not a moral requirement, but a skill. It can be trained with small steps, just like you train muscles. First, you notice, then you record, then you strengthen. This thesis will help us move forward without guilt and without pretension, but with real benefits for our mental health and daily life. When the words "be grateful" come across as a demand, resistance first arises inside, followed by emptiness. It is not just the absence of feeling, it is a state where the brain and body enter conservation mode, diminishing the emotional background, reducing initiative, and narrowing focus to a manageable to-do list. You might think the problem is a lack of motivation or laziness. But more often it is not laziness, but a defensive conservation of resources. The internal dialogue in such moments is typical and predictable. I should be grateful, but I feel nothing. Something must be wrong with me. It sounds like an accusation, which closes off access to simple facts. You are tired, you have experienced significant stress, and you are regulating yourself to survive. This is often accompanied by physical symptoms, as if your throat is constricted, your cheeks are hollow, and your body expends energy to maintain vigilance. Every small act of kindness seems overvalued, and instead of a response, you only register the distance. Imagine a mini situation. You return home after a tough day, open the fridge, and see a cup of tea left by your neighbor. A regular person would smile and drink it. You might only notice the mess and think, "Why can't I enjoy this?" This is not about the cup of tea. It is about the system inside working on minimal consumption. It conserves energy, filtering out signals that are unnecessary for survival. Rejecting gratitude is like a torn ticket. You see the opportunity, but the hole prevents you from passing through. It is important to distinguish 2 levels. Cognitive, when you understand that yes, there is something to be grateful for, but it does not evoke emotions. And bodily, when the body physically blocks the response. Often, people start to pressure themselves with logic. I know this, so I should feel this, resulting in a shift to rationalization instead of working with the body and attention. This leads to chronic internal disputes. The mind says, "There are favorable facts." The body replies, "I can't." In this chapter, the main thing is to recognize the absence of gratitude often does not signify a moral catastrophe. It is a signal for resource management. The diagnosis consists of noticing where the reaction is stuck, in the body, in attention, or in self-blame language. This is the first step, because as long as you perceive the absence of feeling as a personal defect, no Soviet gratitude can enter and become a support. Why does the brain refuse to notice minor supports when everything is bad? Several physiological and psychological mechanisms come into play here. The first is the shift in attention thresholds. Under stress, the brain rearranges priorities to focus on threats and potential losses. What was once seen as a resource is now classified as secondary and filtered out. The second mechanism is the history of learning. If past lessons came at the cost of suffering, the brain protects itself to avoid repeating the same pattern. And the third is the socio-cultural background, where ideals and comparisons set standards that are unattainable in reality. To explain this simply, a model of 3 switches can be introduced: historical, comparative, and expectations. The historical switch is the memory of past traumas and the price you paid. The comparative switch is how you measure your present against someone else's photos of success. The expectation switch is the inner voice that dictates how the feeling should be. When even one switch is stuck in the caution position, your ability to perceive small joys sharply decreases. A practical example: a colleague gets a promotion, but you think not about your work, but about how many missed opportunities you had in the past. The historical switch activates. The brain reminds you of losses, and even if there is support and stability nearby right now, you don't notice it. Or another scenario: you compare your life to posts on social media. The comparative switch engages, and any real achievements seem inadequate. This is compounded by the effect of temporal discrepancy. The brain reacts more strongly to immediate threats than to distant gains. Gratitude is usually based on delayed and minor signs: a morning call, a kind word. So it seems to pay off neither here nor now. Understanding this mechanism, you stop demanding immediate feelings from yourself. This is not a failure of character, but a set of objective neuropsychological factors that can be carefully softened and readjusted. The most common mistake is turning gratitude into a moral obligation. People tell themselves, "If I am not grateful, I am selfish," and then attempt to force the feeling. This path works like a counterpoint. You teach yourself hypocrisy. You outwardly agree with the idea, but inside, irritation and self-flagellation grow. The internal monologue often sounds like this: "I should be happy because I am luckier than someone else," which instantly nullifies the personal complexity of experiences. This is not gratitude. It is a moral whip. The second mistake is universalization. One unpleasant situation turns into a diagnosis of "everything in my life is bad." In practice, a person tends to transfer localized injustice onto the entire value system. Losing a job becomes proof of personal failure rather than a random misalignment of circumstances. Here, another internal trap appears: all or nothing. Either I am eternally grateful, or I am defeated. This pushes toward sharp emotional swings and excludes intermediate states. The third mistake is comparison and accounting. People keep a mental ledger of how much I've lost versus how much I've gained, and then demand a net gain from themselves. But life is not accounting. Such counting devalues moments that are fundamentally not measurable in numbers: a warm gesture, a minute of kindness, space for rest. The mistake manifests in a characteristic mini-situation. After an argument, you remember only the reproaches and count the entire night as a disaster, although there could have been a conversation that prompted you to reflect and change a small habit on the same day. It is important to recognize these mistakes as avoidance strategies. They mask the real work. Are your reactions different from the real experience, or are you just following the familiar scripts of justification and blame? A sign that you've fallen into the trap is that you start arguing not with the fact, but with your own right to rejection. This indicates it's time to stop pressuring yourself and to shift the frames of perception. A new perspective does not impose joy. It translates the work of gratitude from the level of moral obligation to the level of skills of attention and contextual assessment. Imagine that you are holding not a magical key to happiness, but a set of filters. They allow you to choose what to bring into focus and what to leave on the periphery. It's not about pretense. It's about choosing a focal point from which the emotional coloring of the moment depends. A unique model for this step is the optics of contexts. Each situation has at least 3 layers of meaning: factual, what happened; interpretive, what you think about it; and linking, what actions it provokes. Changing your perspective means a targeted work with the linking layer. You do not bring back the past. You do not demand immediate feelings of gratitude from yourself. You change the question from, "Why am I not grateful?" to, "What one fact can I accept today as a support?" This question redirects energy from self-blame to exploration. An example of everyday reconfiguration. Instead of thinking, "There's no point in celebrating since I didn't lose weight," you examine the fact, "I took a 20-minute walk," and ask yourself what this gives. Maybe it was movement that slightly improved sleep. You note the fact and acknowledge a small consequence without demanding a burst of delight. It's not magic, but it's a real rearrangement of mental processes. This approach does not negate pain or resentment. It allows them to coexist with a point of support. People who begin to practice the optics of contexts often note not instant joy, but a reduction in inner conflict. There are fewer arguments with oneself, less moral pressure. This opens up space for gradual changes, and it is in this space that gratitude ceases to be a punishment and becomes a tool that can be turned on periodically, as one is ready. When you stop treating gratitude as a moral obligation and start seeing it as a skill, specific things change in everyday life. Firstly, the level of internal conflict decreases. Instead of constant accusations, you receive more neutral observations that do not require an immediate emotional response. Secondly, your ability to notice small confirmations of work increases. Those small anchors that were previously deemed insignificant. Small anchors make ordinary life less chaotic. You start collecting confirmations that gradually form a sense of stability. The unique mini-model here is the loop of small confirmations. You notice a fact, record it with a short note, mentally or in speech, and observe the consequence. It can be that simple. You noticed that a neighbor helped with bags, said "thank you," and felt lightness. The next day, you paid more attention to people around you and received another small sign of support. The loop accumulates and changes, not the inner drama, but everyday expectations. The world starts to give a little more because you consciously accept what comes. The results are not always loud. Changes often appear statistically. Fewer sleepless nights due to ruminations, clearer decisions regarding work and relationships, less energy spent on self-flagellation. A separate effect is improved communication. When you stop demanding perfect gratitude from yourself, you are less likely to project your dissatisfaction onto loved ones. And here is a mini situation. A person who used to silence resentment with the phrase, "I am ungrateful," suddenly says a simple, "I am tired, but this helped." And here's a response that previously did not reach him because he did not listen to it. In conclusion, accepting gratitude as a skill does not mean that everything falls into place. It means that you have real tools for reducing internal disconnection, for carefully building positive confirmations, and for establishing more honest relationships with yourself and others. This chapter is a tool, not philosophy, but specifics. 4 simple steps that can be implemented immediately. Each step is designed for real-life conditions of fatigue and skepticism. It doesn't require significant resources and doesn't impose moral demands. Step 1. Micro-habit 15 seconds of focus. In the morning or evening, take 15 seconds and mentally name one simple event that passed without disaster. Today, the glass of water was clean. The neighbor closed the door carefully. I opened the window. Name it aloud or to yourself. It doesn't matter. Write it down in a separate notebook once a day at most. The goal is not to evoke delight, but to train attention to fixate on the fact. This minimal effort, 15 seconds, is precisely what is easier to maintain in moments of fatigue. Step 2. A question that brings you back to reality. When the inner demand, "I must be grateful," arises, stop and ask yourself one simple question. What exactly worked in my favor today, even a little? Answer specifically and briefly. The letter arrived. I didn't cut my finger. Someone called me. If the answer doesn't come, find the most neutral fact. For example, I am breathing without pain right now. This question shifts energy from self-blame to exploration and shuts down the standard moral script. Step 3. Action of the day. A small gesture of acceptance. Every day, perform one small action that confirms the acknowledged fact. If you noted that it was sunny outside, take a 3-minute walk. If someone helped, say thank you or return the gesture with respect. If you noticed that you felt better, write it down in your phone. The action should be simple and take no more than 5 minutes. This transforms the fixation on the fact into a small behavioral loop, fact to action to light feedback. Step 4. Tracking progress and keeping it in the system. Maintain a simple metric. At the end of the week, count how many times you did 15 seconds of focus and action of the day. Do not evaluate the quality of emotions. We only count the fact of completion. A visible counter is the best tool against setbacks. It shows that you have not failed, even if internally it is still difficult. If you miss a day, do not punish yourself. Note the miss and return to the habit. In case of fatigue, set the rule, do it in any format. Instead of writing in a notebook, you can mark the number on your hand or in a phone note. The main thing is continuity, not perfection. How not to give up. Use a tie to an already existing habit. Set a reminder after brushing your teeth. And a minimal threshold. 15 seconds, plus one action up to 5 minutes. Focusing on execution, not feeling, reduces resistance. Over time, this will yield objective results. Fewer evenings filled with self-blame, and more instances when you notice that the world responds with small but genuine signs. The main idea: gratitude should not be an ideology or a measure of moral value. It is a skill of attention and resource economy. When you stop demanding immediate joy from yourself and begin to notice facts, space opens up inside for a more honest relationship with yourself. This space is not emptiness, but a field where you can safely try new reactions. The second conclusion: small supports work not because they are magical, but because they change the brain's priority system. Our everyday confirmations carefully set expectations, less internal blame, more facts that can be used as support. The transition from "I have to be grateful" to "I can notice and acknowledge" removes moral pressure and transforms the practice into a controlled skill. What is important to take away right now? You don't need to wait for complete emotional recovery to start. It is enough to learn to notice one fact and confirm it with action. This does not negate pain and injustice. It makes your life less chaotic and a little more manageable. You gain a tool that helps accept complexity without self-judgment and preserves energy for the changes that truly matter. Final word: grant yourself the right to contradiction. You can feel resentment while simultaneously noticing a small stronghold that helps you stay in line. This is not a betrayal of feelings, but a practical strategy for survival and growth. If this video was helpful to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next day.